Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. We are glad to have you. You are listening to the Doc Owen Show live on Spreaker. We are
sure enough
glad you're here. First of all, I guess we should apologize for our radio silence last week. Hope you enjoyed the week off of not being challenged by the Doc Owen Show. We're going to pick up right where we left off and challenge you, as always, to connect the dots and get beyond what you see on the boob tube. So we'll see how we do. We have a full house in the Hilltop Studios tonight. I am joined by...
I'm a surefire.
And...
Uncle Bocce.
Boom. So here we go. We are all over social media as Doc Owen Show, DocOwenShow. Find our page on Facebook. Give it a like. Follow us on Twitter. That is by far the most instantaneous, quickest, and reliable way to know that the show is on the air. We do this at the same time every Thursday night until we have a hiccup and travel gets in the way or illness gets in the way or something like that. But it's extremely rare. You can also go to our blog, the Doc Owen Show, spelled the same way, DocOwenshow.com. Uncle Bocce is the caretaker for the blog, and he uses it for his historical research site, and has a bunch of links out there to things that he's found, but doesn't necessarily have all the airtime to bring up. So you can, if you hear something that tweaks your interest, you can go out there and start your research there. It's a really good point to do that. We have free, no charge, absolutely, apps for both the iPhone and the Android. Go to your respective store, download the free app, and get access not only to the live show as a podcast incrementally when you want to listen to it, as well as most of our library is out there, and we are now in year 5, show number 39. So we've got a pretty extensive cast of characters out there that you may want to go back and listen to. We always begin the show in a very traditional manner, besides that of our one and only advertising pitch, which is just that. We're self-promoting. That's how we do it. Then we start off with an inspirational note provided by Ms. Surefire. Uncle Bocce gives us this day in history, and I close out the three-way with a sort of a leadership quote or two. So, Ms. Surefire, take it away.
And tonight's quote comes from a site that I haven't used before, so it was quite refreshing to find some more quotes.
Yeah, a new source.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that source is goodhousekeeping.com.
Get out of here.
I know, I was shocked too. I was like, that used to be a magazine my mother used to read.
No, well, he meant that. Get out of here.
No.
Oh, no, he didn't.
Not hardly.
No.
Well, the standard phrase back in the day, and your Uncle Bocce and I things had to have the good housekeeping seal of approval.
Oh, goodness.
That's right.
When you looked for the good, you were told on products and advertising on this new thing called the television to look for the good housekeeping seal of approval.
Yep.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
It's amazing. They're still kicking.
That's amazing. That's really cool. Okay. What did they have to say? What enlightenment did they provide?
The quote comes today from a gentleman that most of us have heard. His name was Robert Frost.
Oh, yeah.
He was an American poet.
Yeah. Oh, Bobby.
Yeah. And his quote is, "Freedom lies in being bold."
Ooh, Bubba.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Well done, Good Housekeeping and Robert Frost. But
Freedom.
well done,
Absolutely.
Good Housekeeping for having that kind of a quote out there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Freedom lies in being bold.
That's
And boy,
correct.
those who fight for freedom are bold, aren't
Yes.
You have to be.
sure
That's
are.
what
You
they
have
tell
to be.
you.
That's what it said.
That's
I know.
what it is today. And
No.
Yep.
they? No,
Unfortunately.
probably forever. It's been that
Yeah,
way.
it's only going to get worse from here.
Uncle Bocce, top
Yes,
that.
Uncle Bachi, here we go.
Top that.
On this day in 1788, the U.S. Constitution was ratified with the ratification from New Hampshire. That gave them the 9 states that they needed out of the 13. And so it was ratified, and then the others followed along. The holdouts were, of course, New York, Massachusetts, Virginia, and I think Maryland,
Okay.
where the Federalist Papers were written to the Massachusetts. Yeah, they were the holdouts. That's why they were worried about them. But Massachusetts got them to agree to amendments after the ratification. So that's how we got our Bill of Rights. Good old Massachusetts.
Interesting.
Yep,
That's
Wow.
that's it.
it. That's enough. That's a big day.
Yeah, it's enough. Right?
Okay. As if you've been listening lately, I've been quoting out of a book called God Bless America: Prayers and Reflections for Our Country that I was given to by a good friend and listener. So again, thanks, G. And it's funny, your good housekeeping, we always wind up on the same page. This one came from a gentleman by the name of William Lyle Bowles, Bowles. Didn't have time to look him up, but you're more than welcome to figure out, And he said the cause of freedom is the cause of God.
Ooh, yeah, that
That's a
goes
good
good
one.
with the one you just had.
Right.
That's pretty quinky.
I like that.
That's a good one.
So there you go.
Well, that rings. That rings.
I have a special announcement to make before we dive into our show. This show, as you know, has been, I don't want to say, supportive of our local district attorney in San Antonio, who is and he's been on the show numerous times, and I have an untold number of young people who consistently tell me that they really like the shows that Nico is on. His name is Nico LaHood. He's a bright young attorney who lost his bid for re-election in the primary to a George Soros-funded opponent.
Boo.
And both Democrats. And it was, anyway, Mr. LaHood, his office, reached out to us this week, talked to Ima, and we have set up a series of shows. We're going to do an hour every other week, which means on our show it'll be about a half hour every week. And Nico wants to tell the story of basically his time in office, to go through kind of from the first election, through all the work that he did and accomplished and all the good things that he did through this less than fair election cycle that he just went through. So we are extremely flattered that he's chosen us to be an avenue to put that story out there. And I hope that you, as we go through this, I hope that you will tell your friends, neighbors, countrymen, brothers, sisters, family, etc., to listen in and listen up, because I think it's going to be a very eye-opening experience for all of us. I'm looking forward to the conversations. So we may even give it a title and hit the big time. But at any rate, I think it's going to be something that you want to tune into. It should be very informative.
Absolutely.
And not just for San Antonio, not just for Texas, but as I always say, remember, things that go on here, things that go on in your small town, are nothing more than a microcosm of what's going on in the world. Just exploded out. Exploded out. It's like if you ever go to, the United States we've got mountains on the east and the west coast, but they're most of the mountains are on the west. Have you ever noticed that every place else you go, even to another state or to another country or whatever, it's always the same. The high area, be they mountains or hills or whatever they are in the western part of the territory, whatever territory it is. If you think back on all the places you've been, they're kind of formed the same way. The east are the plains, and the west is the mountainous area, with very rare exceptions. Mm-hmm. And that's what I talk about, microcosms. Your hometown is nothing but a small reflection of the same thing on a bigger scale as you go all the way out to the world.
Nothing new under the sun. Yeah,
that's
right.
That's exactly right. So listen up as we talk to Nico and transpose that to the names and faces of folks that you have in your hometown. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Okay. Uncle Bocce?
Yes, sir.
You got some history for us today? Where did we leave off?
We left off with Rutherford B. Hayes.
Yeah, old Rutherford.
And this is our second week on that.
Okay.
So we're going to look more into, what did he accomplish and what was going on. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the primary issues in the late 1870s, he took office in 1877. One of the big issues was there was legislation to return to the gold standard. Apparently, they had gotten off the gold standard during the Civil War.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he was in favor of that. What just happened? Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. The lights just went out.
Oh no.
Yeah.
In Georgia?
He was in Georgia, yeah. Hey, we're doing good tonight. Boy, all of us are on 3 cylinders here. He was in favor of eliminating political corruption because that had become very much a part of the government.
Political corruption?
But yeah, imagine that.
What year was this?
This was 1877.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. So he tried to reform it through the civil service. Go imagine. See, folks, history repeats itself.
Yep.
Okay, and he had a quote.
Kind of like
he said,
deja vu all over again.
Yeah,
like Yogi said.
But this is a good one too. He said he serves his party best who serves his country best.
JFK copied him.
Something like that. Yeah, he did. Yeah, I think. Yeah, you're right. You're right. And as far as conciliation with the South, he was in favor of their local self-government. He pulled the troops out, and but he insisted that they obey the entire Constitution. So we have a man here who was,
that was only fair.
Yeah, it was only fair. But,
I mean, you can't pick and choose what parts of the Constitution you want to abide by.
Yeah, but remember
although some people think they can.
Yeah. Remember back to Andrew Johnson. I mean, not.
I don't remember it as well as you do.
Yeah, well, let's not go there. He supported radical Reconstruction, which was the policy of the Republicans by a large margin.
Right.
And part of that was to secure the rights of black citizens. He was very emotional about that. He felt that the South, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Within 2 months of his inauguration, Hayes ordered the federal troops to their barracks. He wanted them out of there, specifically in Louisiana and South Carolina, and they needed to pledge to support the voting rights of blacks.
Why did he not like Louisiana or South Carolina?
Louisiana and South Carolina were very, very, very outside the mold of everybody else. As far as
were ultra Confederate.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got that right.
And still are till this day.
Mm-hmm. So what then what happened was all of those promises that were made were broken. And the white supremacist Democratic Party asserted total dominance of the South. So now you look at the South, and it's all blue.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
If you want to use today's words.
Right.
So by the 1890s, the Democratic hold on the South resulted in a complete denial of voting rights for blacks, and that lasted until the 1960s. Okay?
Yeah.
You hearing me, folks? This is your real history. Okay. He also defeated an attempt by the Democratic-controlled Congress to force him to accept unwanted legislation by attaching amendments and riders to necessary appropriation bill, a practice which still goes on today.
150 years later.
Yep. So the stone rolls down the hill, gathers the moss, I guess. His presidency, it was in a slightly weakened state, not because he was weak, but because of the confrontation between Congress and him. The country was kind of divided and was distracted, and really was kind of on the low side, kind of depressed.
Well, we're only what, 10 years out from the war between the states?
Yes, sir.
So that wasn't a wound that you could expect to heal quickly.
Yeah, exactly. He did attempt to restore prestige to the office. There was a thing called senatorial courtesy, which had become a tradition.
Yeah.
And what that did was it gave senators the right to appoint civil service within the state that they represent.
Right.
Yeah, he didn't like that, but he left.
Was that? I've forgotten where we are, but was that back in the day when the senators were still appointed by the governor?
Yes.
And they were not elected?
That's correct. That wasn't until Woodrow Wilson messed it up.
Key element.
Yes.
Yes.
Very, very key. So, I mean, there was some precedent there for the senators to do that.
Yes, of
but
course,
it wasn't right in his eyes. So he took that away from him.
That's why I was bringing it up.
So
right.
He did leave his party united, harmonious, and prosperous. And he had found the Republican Party, when he came to it, was discordant, disheartened, and weak. And he left it strong and victorious, both the party and the country.
Was he there for 4 or 8 years? Was he there for two terms?
No, he was there for
just
one term. Yep, that's all he wanted.
Oh, he's
right from the outset.
He's one of those.
Yes, sir.
Got it.
Yes, sir. So
those 4-term guys seem to get a lot done. I mean, 4-year guys seem to get a lot done.
Yeah, because I guess they're
they're in there on a mission.
Yeah,
rock and roll city.
They're focused.
And they're focused.
They're
yeah,
focused.
You're right. Exactly.
You got it, Alma. You're right.
Okay. So the Reconstruction regime imposed on the defeated Southern states.
Too many of them are focused on re-election during their entire first term.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
And there was a lot of backroom deals that led to his being elected. He did order the federal troops to quell the very first strike in America. It was a railroad strike, go figure, because that was the first big corporation that had...
I thought you were talking baseball.
No. Yes, 3 strikes, you're out, right? He implemented modest civil service reforms by favoring competence over party loyalty in government appointments. Got that, folks? Still a problem. He vetoed the Bland-Allison Act, which is in favor of maintaining the gold standard as the key to economic recovery. He wanted the gold standard, but he didn't want to depend on the gold standard to be the engine of economic recovery. That was domestic. Foreign policy, he negotiated with China an agreement to regulate immigration with China. Yeah. If Rutherford can do it, you know. He agreed with Mexico to jointly pursue bandits across the border, going both ways.
Yeah.
Why can't we do that? He led reforms of American Indian policy to include assimilation, okay, which with culture, education, training, and he divided Indian lands equitably. His historical significance was he ended the Reconstruction, he broke up the Great Strike, he championed the gold standard, he had great Indian policy, and he negotiated a treaty with the Chinese, and for being an inconsistent civil service reformer. They thought he was kind of like inconsistent, and there was a lot of pushback. Okay, he had strongly held views that pushed forward through his administration. He was very strong about it. He wanted to push these things through. He believed in and proposed civil service reform, as we talked. He set the policy that led to the Panama Canal, although at the time their thinking was it was going to go through Nicaragua.
Right.
So he was very much in favor of that. And I'm going to read one quote and then just tell you a little bit about his character, and that'll be it, okay? This was from his first inaugural address. It's a little bit long, but it's worth hearing. Looking for the guidance of that divine hand. Remember last week you started wondering about where's all the religion?
Right.
Well, here's a man who, in his speech,
Right.
believed in the divine hand, by which the destinies of nations and individuals are shaped. I call upon you, senators, representatives, judges, fellow citizens, here and everywhere, to unite with me in an earnest effort to secure our country the blessings not only of material property, but of justice, peace, and union. A union depending upon the constraint of force, okay, but upon loving devotion of a free people. Just a side thing here. You're going to hear.
He's now pointing to the side of his computer terminal.
Yeah, you're going to hear in this coming election, you're going to hear the and you already are hearing the leftists using the word love a lot. And I think it's going to grow. And here he is 150 years ago, right? Okay, all things may be so ordered and settled upon.
Yeah, but he was sincere.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. He believed in the truth and justice, religion and piety, and that may be established among us for all generations. That was from his first inaugural address, so you see what some of the things he wanted to accomplish. Now, he was a very imposing man. He was tall, he was robust, broad-shouldered. Some say he was a handsome figure. You know, that depends on your taste. He had a large head, a high forehead, deeply set blue eyes, a straight nose, firm lips, and sound, straight teeth.
Well, that made
Would you vote for this guy for president?
That made him extremely unique.
Yes, it sure did, especially back in those days.
Very unpopular in Arkansas.
Okay. He was respectable, dignified, and a decent egalitarian. He had a sensitive nature, a judicious temperament, and a pragmatic attitude. He was patient reformer who attempted what was possible and was optimistic that education of the public would accomplish in the future the present day impossibility. Okay, so shortly before he died, this is the last words, or shortly before he died, not his last words, he concluded, I am a radical in thought and principle and a conservative in method, that is conduct.
Interesting.
A good combination, don't you think?
It sounds to me like he accomplished an awful lot.
He did.
To not be known very well.
I know. I know.
You know what I'm saying?
And he's still not regarded very well, even.
But it seems like he did some pretty solid things.
He did.
Interesting.
He was good for the country.
I mean, yeah, we need to make a note of that.
Yeah. And that is it. So this is Uncle Bachi, UNCLEBACI. You can reach me there. And the question for this week is, who designed the first American flag? This is going to expand, folks. In a couple of weeks, we'll be able to give you a little token of our appreciation if you're one of the first ones that comes along with the answer. Uncle Bocce at DocOwenShow.com. And we will send you a little tiny gift.
Yeah, we'll give you a star.
A star, yeah. A real star.
How about a cookie? A star cookie.
A star cookie.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Good guys. Good for you.
Thanks, Bocce.
You're welcome.
Rutherford
Thank
B.
you.
Hayes.
Yep, that was the man.
Very interesting. Okay. Before, as kind of a segue, the last few shows we have been playing some a recording. Actually, is the best way of putting it. Some of it is music, and some of it is a message, and it is called, interestingly enough, Music with a Message.
Oh.
That's pretty good.
From a very good friend of ours by the name of Dave Bray, who has introduced on his own, independently, his first album. And it is Music with a Message, available on iTunes. When it was pre-released, it came on the charts at number 6 and has continued to grow since. Yeah. It's doing quite well. Yeah. So we give little snippets of that with Dave's permission.
Right.
Encouragement, actually, to play it. So
I believe it's on YouTube. Yeah, no, I think it's on YouTube as well.
You can get pieces of it on YouTube.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
But Dave could use the support to go out to
Absolutely.
iTunes and spend $9.99 and
please do.
Download the entire thing.
Exactly.
So what he does is he talks a piece and then plays the song for it. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. I'm not going to interrupt it. We're going to go with Ms. Surefire's help. Is there anything we need to tell Ed? We got a listener that was online with us while Uncle Bocce was talking. Okay. So thanks, Ed. So
Yes.
we're going to play Dave Bray, and it's the message first, and I think the title to the message is "Without God There Is No Country." Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then his version of "God Bless America." Mm-hmm. So back to back, enjoy, and we'll be right back.
Kind of flows right into your quotes.
Yes, thank
you. Go ahead.
God Bless America. God Bless America is a song we all know and love, and like the Star-Spangled Banner, it has parts and verses not well known by the American public. Although it was written by a young Jewish immigrant by the name of Irving Berlin during World War I, it was never released until World War II with the uprising of Adolf Hitler and the Third Reich. It was put over the airwaves on Armistice Day, 1938, and sung by the great Kate Smith as a song of peace and as a prayer for our sons and daughters who are putting themselves in harm's way to defeat the German Empire in a faraway land. Over the years, the introduction and prayer portion has slowly been lost and weathered its way into the archives. Lost into the history books, much like any and everything else in this country that speaks outwardly about prayer, God, or Christianity. Now, I'm going to tell you this with a level of absolute certainty that some of you politically correct type folks might not want to hear. But it is my firm belief that without God, there is no country. It seems that since the removal of God from our schools, our courthouses, our public facilities, and not surprisingly from our homes and hearts, that things have taken a very scary turn for this country. Today, we fight a different kind of war. It's based on the foundation of fear, the devil's favorite tool. It is passive and prescribed drug abuse. It's protests turning violent. It's school shootings and cop assassinations. It's trucks driving through crowds and exploding rice cooker bombs. But aside from these terroristic distractions, there is yet a bigger war that we are losing at a much faster and scarier rate. It is the war for the minds of our children. It is happening in our homes and coming from our televisions. It's in our schools and being slid into the curriculum, and on damn near every street corner, it is being shoved down their throats. The attack is perverse. It's physical, mental, pharmaceutical, and worst of all, it's digital. It's passive, it's violent, it's commercial, it's social, and yes, it's contagious. It's participation trophies and belly rubs. It's video games and tech addiction. It's ignorance, apathy, and lack of parenting and respect. Sadly, it's not showing any signs of getting any better. And that's just the war for your children's minds. You see, no one has the guts to come out and say that these issues are directly correlated to the godlessness that has blanketed this country. For the sake of future generations, I beg you to bring God back. Back to your courthouses and public grounds. Back into your schools. And most importantly, back into your hearts and into your homes. You see, America is our home. And I think it's time that we brought the prayer back. This is God Bless America.
Home, home, sweet home. This land I love is blessed from above. While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us all be grateful for our land that's still free. Let us all swear allegiance to our land that's so fair, as we raise up our voices to the air in this solemn prayer. God bless America, this land that I love. Stand beside her sweet home.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much. You're always one for pulling the right chord.
Absolutely.
No pun intended.
That's
Anybody
true.
got a tissue?
Nice to have you as a friend. That's a good version.
It is. Best I've heard.
The title of tonight's show, I don't remember it exactly, but I think it had something to do with immigration and invasion. A couple of years ago, we did several shows on the invasion that was going on here in Texas when there was a huge number of illegal aliens coming across our southern border right here. I mean, and it was an invasion. That's the only way to put it. It completely overran our capabilities to try to stop it. Something similar is going on now. And all of this hoopla and stuff about immigration. I ran into an article that I want to read to you with your permission. Take a couple of minutes. It's written by one of Uncle Bocce's cousins from New Jersey. It's bound to, it's bound to be the guy. His name is Giacomo Nicolazzo.
Giacomo. Oh, yeah. That's right.
He had to hear it. It's Giacomo. Yeah, Giacomino.
Giacomo?
It's Giacomino.
Yeah, Giacomino. Yeah.
Giacomino
Means Jack,
Why didn't you just say Jack? Anyway,
because he's Italian.
Mr. Nicolazzo makes some very good points. So I want to give this to you, and you will find it on the Doc Owen Show Facebook page as well. I put it out there. I guarantee that most people around the world are not being told. It has to do with the children of illegal aliens being ripped from the arms and sometimes from the nursing breasts of their mothers, thrown into cages and treated little better than dogs, all at the hands of the tyrannical Trump administration. Mm-hmm. But you won't believe what just a little research has revealed. Keep in mind, this is the research the far left and the mainstream media are banking you will never do. If you don't know the facts, they are free to lie and brainwash and misrepresent to their heart's content. And once the lie is out there and repeated enough times, it becomes the facts. Mm-hmm. So listen up. International law, the very international law that the far left, think Obama administration, were demanding the U.S. follow, requires that refugees fleeing a country and seeking asylum do so in the very first country they enter, providing that country will not continue to persecute them. In the instances of the Central, South, and Latin American refugees, that country would be Mexico. Mm-hmm. But Mexico advises the refugees not to request asylum because Mexico will deny the request. They don't want them. And if the request is denied, the refugee is required to go back to their country of origin. But something else is being violated here. Mexico, under international law, is not permitted to refuse a legitimate request for asylum, nor are they permitted to send the asylum seeker back into harm's way. But if the request for asylum is not legitimate and substantiated, then Mexico is free to refuse them, which is what they are doing. They're acting like their application is not legitimate. Mm. In these instances, the refugees are advised, educated, and assisted in making their way to the United States. Those that are legitimate refugee with substantiating reasons for seeking asylum, reasons that should allow them to be granted asylum by the U.S., are directed and assisted by the Mexican government to specific and official border checkpoints. In certain instances, Mexico delivers them to the checkpoint. Those that have no hope of attaining asylum, however, because their requests are fraudulent, are advised, educated, and assisted by the Mexican government as to the best location and times to sneak across the U.S. border illegally, such to minimize the chances of being caught, detained, and deported. They are advised that if they are captured, to immediately request asylum. But when a foreign national is caught illegally crossing the U.S. border, they are detained by Border Patrol and placed in a temporary holding facility wherein they are processed and eventually deported. If the illegal alien has children with them, the process is markedly different. The parents or adult guardians and the children are housed together at U.S. taxpayer expense for 20 days. During those 20 days, they are advised as to the laws they have broken, and they are provided with numerous options to remedy their plight. They are permitted, without being charged with a crime, to recross the border with their children into Mexico and make their way to an official checkpoint where they can legally and appropriately seek asylum. If they refuse that option and decide to remain in detention, they are told they will be charged with a felony and detained awaiting a deportation order from a U.S. court. The order can take up to several months because of the backlog. I saw something the other day. There are 660,000 cases awaiting adjudication in this matter. During that time, their children will be removed from their custody and placed elsewhere because U.S. and international law forbids the housing or commingling of children in adult detention facilities. Make sense? The children will be placed with other family members currently residing legally in America or with a licensed foster facility until such time as the deportation order is received and executed. At the time of deportation, the children are reunited with the parents and taken back across the border as a family through a reciprocity agreement the U.S. has with Mexico. The illegal aliens are advised numerous times within those 20 days that they will be charged with felony border crossing should they not return to Mexico voluntarily. In so denying this option, they are told their chances of ever getting into the U.S. legally are eliminated. These people are advised quite well as to their situation and their options. They are treated fairly and humanely. This is not what he said, but I would add, which is the American way. At any time during the 20-day detention, they can opt to return to Mexico voluntarily and attempt to enter the U.S. through proper means and channels, this avoiding a criminal record in the U.S. Children are not being ripped away from their parents. If the children are removed, it is because the parent chose for that to happen. That's something that's not. So at no time is the enforcement of these laws, rules, and protocols in any way harsher or more frequent than what took place under Obama. And then he added, "You are being played like a fiddle, but now you know the truth. So spread it."
That's right. Good article.
It is a good article. That's the reason
Good article, Giacomo.
I couldn't have said it any better myself. And it's what we've been saying all along. It's what we've been saying on this radio show for years. It's not what it appears to be, and it's certainly not what they want you to think that it is. I mean, they're going so far as these children don't even belong to the adults
That's right.
that are crossing the border with them. The U.S. courts were told by the authorities that if they do it this way, they're going to up the frequency of kidnapping on the other side of the border so that the parents can have, quote, parents, the adults can have a child cross with them, thinking that the U.S. will be more lenient on them. To me, the truth has got to be out there. There's no way that what you're seeing on television or hearing in the news or hearing at the water cooler at work, that there's no way that is the truth.
That's right.
I mean, anytime that happens to you, as a listener of this program, your first thought should be, that can't be true. Or at least think, that can't be all there is to it. As the guy we're going to be having on a lot coming up, Nico, always said, don't react, respond. Take some time to think about it. When you hear all this stuff that tears at your heartstrings and just makes you want to, bang your head against the wall or whatever, realize that's what they want you to do. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what they're programming you to do. Don't let them win. Stop and think. Right?
Right.
I mean, there's... Think about it, folks. I mean, do you really think that the United States of America Border Patrol is locking up little children in a gulag-type cage to be mean?
No, but they believe that
To
Trump
be
is
ugly?
doing it. Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Some of the first pictures that came out of it were not even pictures of Trump. They were pictures from the Obama administration.
Exactly.
They pulled pictures out of the file because they didn't have any current pictures that matched up to the storyline that they wanted to tell.
Right. Mostly 2014.
Go back and do a little research on Nazi Germany. All this stuff about them, if you tell them often enough, eventually they'll believe that it's the truth.
Absolutely.
All of that stuff, that's where, if it didn't originate there, that's who was the master of it.
Yeah. And
Right?
yeah, and
Marxism.
Karl Marx, that is absolutely a tenet of the Marxian way.
Exactly. Which, by the way, is a real bottom line philosophy of today's Democrat Party. I'm not going to put it on all Democrats.
Nope.
But today's Democratic leadership, let's put it that way, are Marxian to the core. Mm-hmm. And they believe that that's the way things should be.
Yeah. And I learned that in 6th grade, folks. A long time ago. Go ahead.
You didn't learn it in 6th grade.
No, I gave a talk about it. I did research and I found it and I gave a talk about it.
Okay, in the 6th grade.
In the 6th grade.
So did you? Was it based on a belief?
It was.
What drove you to that? Why'd you do that?
Because I was doing communism. I was talking about Karl Marx and communism, and that was by
the
far
origins.
Yeah,
Right.
that's by far the thing that I remember. I don't remember anything else. I remember that though.
I'll bet you do.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure it
It
had
made that much of an impression.
quite
on
an
me.
impression. I got it. So I'll go back to pick yourself a phrase that puts your mind where it should be and not where they want it to be. Let me give you an example. Back in the 60s, the late 60s and the early 70s, I was a traveling salesman. I drove all over Texas and Oklahoma and every state that touched them. Okay? I drove a lot of miles. And the same thing my dad did. And I was trained somewhat when you got into a new town, when you checked into the motel where you were staying, you picked up a newspaper and you read the local newspaper to get a feel for what was going on in town. You could look at the want ads. You could look, you looked at things in the local paper that let you know how that town was doing, so to speak, financially, economically, activity-wise, et cetera, before you went to call on the local merchant the next morning. You had something to talk about. Local. Showed you cared. All of that was true. And I mean, Dad taught me that when I was a real youngster, when I used to travel with him. But somewhere along the line, and I can tell you about when it was, 1971 or 1972, as the Vietnam War drug on, I quit buying newspapers. I haven't read a newspaper since the early 70s. Okay? For one, I didn't like the ink getting on my hand. And that was a real pet peeve of mine. You get up, you get cleaned up, take a shower, you go eat breakfast, read the newspaper, and you got to go wash your hands again. Yep. You got that black stuff all over. It was terrible. So I didn't like doing that. But my trigger phrase to myself and anybody else standing around the newsstand was, "Oh, What do they want us to think this morning? In other words, I don't believe a word of what they're saying. They're telling me a story on what they want me to think, not what reality is.
Yeah.
You know, you have to learn to read between the lines,
That's true.
which I've said often. But in today's world, pick a phrase that allows you to back away from what you're seeing on television, what you're hearing on the radio, what you're seeing on Twitter or Facebook or anything else for that matter, and find yourself a mental space that you can create what is real.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
I mean, you have to be grounded.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta have a fear of God, I believe. You gotta know what your basics are, and then you gotta put yourself there when someone else, the New World Order master puppets, are trying to move you into a particular spot with their storyline, like all of this crap going on about down at the border about ripping children out of adults' hands. Mm-hmm. I understand that Trump has come out with an executive order that has somewhat changed the policy, or is starting to change the policy. And I don't really know whether it's because I would like to think that he has not caved to the sentiment that a lot of us don't believe is true.
Right.
I think he's got something else planned.
You have always been the one, very rightfully so, by the way, that has, anytime Trump has done something, Ima has always gone,
There's something else coming.
he's a pretty smart guy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Wait and see.
Yeah.
Let's wait and see. He's trying to force somebody's hand to do this.
That's
and,
exactly.
And you know, he may be doing this at our southern border to, who knows, force Russia to do something. You know what I mean? He thinks on this.
Globally.
He thinks globally and who, you know, I mean, he's got it, you know, but he doesn't necessarily show his cards
That's right.
as
No.
any good.
He wants it to succeed.
Okay, you ready for the punchline?
Yes.
He waits until he has the
Trump
card
Yes. Yeah.
to play his card.
Yeah.
That's,
Yep.
if you don't play bridge, you need to go look up what a trump card is. So we're coming down to about a minute or so. The whole thing that we collectively would like for you to take away tonight is find a mental space that you know is real. And if you don't believe what you're being told, you have access to unlimited facts and information.
You do.
Go dig it out. Get to know what's real. There's always a little string of truth in the story they're telling.
It's out there.
Go find it. Go find out what the reality is, and don't just settle for what you see straight in front of you, because I can assure you that is not reality.
That's right.
And unfortunately, that non-reality is intentional to maneuver us into a place where we shouldn't be and never have been in the past. And that's what taking God out of our schools did to us.
That's right.
Front row. Time to go. You have been listening to the Doc Owen Show. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Now go out there this week and take care, pay attention, and God bless.
Bye-bye, folks. God bless.